Welcome, everyone, to the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. I'm your host, Desiree Stanley, and with me today is my guest, Marjie Hadad. How are you today, Marjie?
Doing wonderfully. How are you?
I'm excellent, and I am so honored to have you on the show. Marjie is the founder of PR for Life, and we're going to be talking about this kind of intersection of PR and parenting and the journey of raising a family and your children, and this really kind of interesting combination of how you can use these skills to carry over into parenting. And so, thank you for joining us. Marjie, I'm so curious how this came to be for you. What led you down this path?
Ultimately, it was a big surprise, as
Okay.
many things are in our lives, correct? So, I've been in public relations for 30 years, and the last 24 of them as the general manager of Must Have Communications with a specialty in medical PR. A couple of years ago, I was talking with my older daughter. I have three children, boy, girl, 27, 24, and 19. And she was in the military at the time. And she was telling me about some of her friends in the military who had just gotten married. They were interested in starting families right away, but they were concerned that they wouldn't be able to balance or juggle the work family balance, becoming a mom and also wanting to pursue their professional interests. And my daughter looked at her friends and said, "What are you talking about? My mother's been doing this for 25 years. Of course you can." And then she looked at me and she said, "Mom, you made mistakes, but overall, I think you got it right. I think you should help the next generation based on your experience and expertise with this work family balance challenge." After I got over the initial shock of the endorsement, because I truly was not expecting it, I thought to myself, what is it that I had gotten right? And when I looked back, I understood that I had used my professional expertise as a public relations executive to raise my kids, and it worked. Wow. And what's wow about it is I didn't do it intentionally. It was a natural application of bringing my job home with me and not separating work from home and home from work. It was just one big life calendar, if you will. And I brought my full self to work and I brought my full self to home. So I thought about it and I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to document. So here's my shameless plug. Here is the power of PR parenting for all the viewers out there and anyone who's listening. This is a 25-year retrospective of personal and professional stories and a how to so that you can learn how to apply your own public relations superpowers to thrive in every aspect of your life, whether it's family, parenting, career, just interaction with whoever you happen to be communicating with. Because at the core of it, public relations is communication, words, tone, delivery, practices, tactics to achieve a short, medium, or long term goal based on your key messages to whatever your defined target market is. And your target market could be a mass community of teachers, or it could be your children, or it could be the dry cleaner because you want a rush and they don't want to rush it for you. So what are the key messages that you share with your target marker being the dry cleaner so that you can get your laundry on time, short-term goal. So with the children, it could be getting them to clean up their room or walking the dog or setting the table. It's whatever you define. And these are examples of real life applications of public relations practices and skills, tactics, and strategies.
Oh gosh, Marjie, that is fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us. And we will talk more about your book because it is so, what a great way to think about how to interact with your children. And I love, first of all, that you got that endorsement from your children because so often we don't get that. And not that we expect it necessarily, but what a fantastic kind of pat on the back for you that your daughter was just impressed by how you raised her and her siblings and wanted you to share that knowledge with other people. And we get to be the benefit of that. And so thank you so much for writing this and sharing it with everyone. And I love this idea of your whole self, bringing your whole self to work and your whole self to your home family life, because we do often compartmentalize, right? We kind of have this persona for work and a home persona as a wife, mother, whatever, a sibling. And so this idea of being the whole you is awesome. I love that. And if you want to talk more about that, I'm all for it. But let's talk also about this idea of how we can use these skills to work with our children as we're growing them, as they are growing up, and in solving these kind of day-to-day dilemmas. And you mentioned cleaning the room, but maybe somebody might be struggling with whether it's giving up the pacifier or potty training or whatever, doing their homework, whatever the case may be. Let's dig into that a little bit, if you will.
Okay. So we have an awful lot of practices at the office that I would bring home. And ultimately, the goal was to inspire confidence, resilience in the kids, as well as have them achieve some level of success. Now, mind you, it was never about being perfect. It was about learning to be able to enjoy the journey and the process, to improve along the way. And what do I mean by improve? Do a little bit better than you did the last time, even if it's just incrementally and a little bit. That's great. Celebrate the little successes because eventually they'll become big successes if we're patient with ourselves. And we don't have to be Broadway stars, though, quite frankly, sometimes people are Broadway stars or aerospace engineers or whatever, Nobel laureate, pick your top tier kind of thing, Olympiad. Sometimes it's good just to enjoy being able to be good at it in such a way that inspires you to feel good about yourself. One of the things that we do at the office is we prep and we also give feedback. So, as an example of how we inspire confidence and how we get our kids to do their homework, one of the things that's challenging when you bring homework home to some of the kids is they're not really confident that they're going to be able to do it, or they hate a topic because they think they're not good at it. So if you offer be a second pair of eyes, because in public relations, even the most experienced writer, we all know that there's no such thing as the perfect first draft. In any kind of office situation, we write a first draft and then it gets passed around to a gazillion people, right? And then everybody has their say. Please put it in track so we can see what you're doing. And then the document improves along the way because everybody is coming at it and adding their opinion from a different perspective. Same thing with the homework. So when you sit with your child and say, okay, maybe you're working on math or maybe you're working on an English assignment or a history assignment. Can I have a look at what you're doing? And rather than taking a red pen, which says, oh my God, this is horrible. We all see it. We all hold our breath and want to run away and hide under the desk someplace when we see that red pen come out. Oh my God, what's she going to do with that? Take a pastel color or a blue, something soft and calming, and say, let's have a look at this together. And then identify something you might want to change. If there is anything to change, it might be perfectly fine and just say, hey, well done, check, good for you. But if you find something that you want to adjust, say, this is one way to do it. Let me show you another. Is that okay? Is it okay if I show you another way to approach the same thing? This way, you're not criticizing, you're giving feedback. And you're also identifying yourself as a safe place to go for feedback rather than criticism. So the next time the homework assignment comes around, your child might actually say, "Hey, mom, would you mind taking a look at this just to make sure I'm okay?" And again, this is one way to do it. You're not criticizing, you're not making them feel badly about anything. They didn't do anything wrong per se. But here's another way. And then they learn and they're inspired to improve and try it all over again so that eventually they will be able to get it right on their own. In terms of the pacifier, this is actually one of my favorite stories. I love this one. Okay. In a service related business, Desiree, sometimes you can't agree on the retainer or the cash because the company can't afford it or there's some sort of reason why it just won't work out cash wise. But you can arrange for some sort of a barter, like they'll buy you this or they'll give you some sort of service or some sort of deliverable that equals the value of what you have in mind for your service. So I brought this concept home and used it with the pacifier. And I said to all three of my kids when the moment arrived, when it was time to say goodbye to the pacifier, I say, next week at the toy store, they're having a special where you can buy whatever toy you want and you can pay for it with your pacifier. And they'd say, really? So if you want, we can go and get whatever toy you want within reason, because each of the toys costs a different amount of pacifiers. And you can go and you can choose and you get to pay on your own. So they take the week and they think, what am I going to get? And then you get to the toy store and your child chooses because the power is in your child's hand the entire time. And then they pick their toy. Now, obviously, have a quick conversation with the cashier, flip them your credit card for the end of the process, and have your child exchange, barter their pacifiers for their toys of choice or their toy of choice, depending on how you want to assign the value of each of those pacifiers. And then they do the exchange, and your child comes away triumphant because you didn't take something out of their hand. You didn't create a situation of loss. You created a situation of empowerment for your child and for yourself. And they go away, they leave the store with something in their hand that they love. And they knew that they had full control because they're the ones who paid for it, not mom. Mom didn't pay for it. I paid for it. Aren't I the big girl or boy? So that's another example out of how to apply a public relations practice, which is also used by other types of businesses at home. Get rid of the pacifier, drama.
Oh my gosh, Margie, I wish I had known you when my children were of that age, because what a clever way to handle that, which can be so stressful for everybody if you're making it like a power struggle, right? And like you just shared, the child is in full power there because they're the ones who are choosing. They are making a choice for one thing versus another. I mean, my gosh, thank you for sharing that. And I love the idea of the homework situation where you are suggesting, let me just be another pair of eyes. Let me just be kind of your partner in this and not, I'm better than you, I know more than you, or this kind of thing, which obviously puts the child in a defensive position, right? They're immediately going to want to defend what they were working on. But in this case, you're saying, like, let me just be a helpful partner here. And so clever. I love it. Thank you for sharing these with us and brilliant ideas on how we can take these things that we're maybe doing in our work life and applying it to our home life in raising our children. It's good stuff. I mean, you talk about quite a few topics in your book. So maybe is there some direction you want to go at this point now with some other things that are in the book that you'd like to share with us that you think the listeners can take away right now and maybe begin implementing?
I think it's important to know that the chapters are not random. There are 10 chapters in the book. And I wanted to be practical from the very start, practical and tangible, if you will. Okay. So that it would apply to parenting anywhere in the world, universal concepts, which, by the way, if you look at the artwork of my book, it's a blue sky. And the reason why I chose a blue sky is because no matter where you are in the world, when you go outside and you look up, you see the sky. And that's one thing that humanity shares in common is looking up and seeing the sky. And I wanted PR parenting to be applicable and to be something easily used by all parents internationally. So that's why the sky, because the sky's the limit with PR parenting. I mean, marketing lingo, right? But at the core of it, that's really the intention there. So I spoke with multiple women because originally this was supposed to be my love letter to the next generation with working moms, remembering my daughter's suggestion based on feedback she had gotten from her friends. And I said, y'all, what do you want to know? What are the pain points? What are the challenges that you're facing now that you would like to explore in this book? And following, let's call it a little bit of market research, market discussion, I chose the topics that we all face. So in the book, I talk about how more or less we all face the same challenges as parents. The question is how we handle it. And in this book, I show you how to look through a public relations lens to address each of the topics, whether it's crisis management, which is chapter 1. And crises can come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and intensity and performance and diversity, respecting diversity and inclusion, and also traumas, different kind of things that we face along the way and how to prepare for them, those kind of things. There's all sorts of, like I said, there's 10 chapters and we look at all sorts of things, but topics that every single one of your viewers and listeners, if they're parents or even entrepreneurs or mentors, are challenged with regularly. And I'm hoping, at least the intention is that this book will help you to look at things a little bit differently, but keeping in mind that you all have public relations superpowers. So this is not moving mountains. It's not a heavy lift. Okay. This is going to be easy peasy for you. It's just adjusting your thinking in a certain way to help you get over those hurdles, get through those challenges a little bit easier. And it should also be noted, quite frankly, at the end of each chapter is a QR code, which gives you access to a free workbook, which is an extension of the exercises in each of the chapters so that you can workshop yourself and have a tangible action plan. So yes, there's exercises in each chapter so that you can take the lessons from the professional and the personal stories and do what we did yourself, but as applicable to your particular set of circumstances. Because every community is different, every neighborhood's different. The questions are universal. The answers are very specific to you. And I want to put that power in your hands to figure out what the best approach is.
Oh gosh, that's awesome. I love any kind of book that's going to give you the steps or the tools, the things that you can use to really make lasting changes. And so it sounds like in this case, by making these workbooks available to people, you are giving us the opportunity to explore and how can we make these adjustments that are relevant to, like you said, our city, our neighborhood, our country, and make it fit for us in what we're working with. And I love that it's not just for parents. These skills are absolutely relevant for business owners, entrepreneurs, just anybody in their everyday life. And you made the point earlier about working with a dry cleaner, trying to get your clothes done quicker. I mean, these are skills that we can use all through our life. So I love that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And the idea of your book being the sky blue, and you're talking about you look up and the sky is blue wherever you are in the world, and you are halfway around the world from me. You are in Israel, and I am in the United States in Southwest, and completely different worlds, right? But again, the point is that these concepts are the same. Maybe how we're addressing them could be slightly different, but taking these principles and looking at our problem from this other lens, we can solve it. So fantastic. Love it. Now, Margie, you had shared with me before we started that this is the 1 year anniversary of your book launch. And it has been a pretty tumultuous year for you and for the country in which you're living. And so, share with us, if you would like, kind of how this book journey went for you. And you shared with us the writing and why you chose to write it. But once it launched, if you want to share with us kind of what you've been doing with the book, that would be awesome.
I have been speaking virtually to parenting groups, to entrepreneurial groups, and each presentation is tailored according to what the group's primary interests are. So ultimately, on the back of the book is a list of what the book covers, whether it's, again, crisis management or sexual harassment or diversity issues or how to build self esteem with performance and writing and how to build confidence and resilience using public relations practices. And I've been tailoring these presentations depending on what people want to hear. So it's ultimately been really fun. And I think the biggest charge for me is discovering how everybody sees the same thing differently and how each reader, something else, something different speaks to them. One woman wrote to me, she said, "Thank you so much for giving me permission to bring my job home." Another one said, "Thank you so much for the concept of the imaginary filtering earplugs when my kids are going crazy at home or I'm having a dramatic interaction at the office." Another one said, "I love the concept of help, don't handle." There's a whole chapter about how we're customer service and the kids are the customers. There's another chapter about, or a section in the chapter about how to keep your calm when everything is just nuts. And I love the feedback that I'm getting worldwide from the moms. I also love that the dads are like, "How about us? You know what? We can use this stuff too." And then the entrepreneurs are reaching out and saying, "This is a really good thing. I'm going to incorporate this in my business practices." Because again, Desiree, ultimately, everybody's got public relations skills. It's a common denominator for most, if not all, professions out there. So we're not asking you to learn how to work with electricity in 30 seconds, which is something that I don't think I would actually want to do. There's certain things that are just not my skill sets, and that's one of them. But public relations is something that we all use in our daily communication with anyone around us. So again, it's not a heavy lift. And I love how all of the readers internationally have discovered their inner strength, a new inner strength that they didn't know they had before. And we're just giving it a name, PR parenting. And I call it PR for life now, with PR parenting being one of the aspects. But all of the concepts are woven throughout the book because there's professional stories and there's personal stories. This is how this was handled. This is how that was handled. This is what I got right. This is what I messed up. So mirror the success. Skip the hiccup. You know the hiccup exists. Don't step into the same pothole. If I knew then what I know now, guess what? Y'all do. So it's been a challenging year personally, as well as current event wise, given where I live, and also because my mother passed away last August, which was very sad and surprising. But in terms of the book journey itself, it's been eye opening. And what's also exciting is that I finished recording the audiobook, and the book is also being translated into Hebrew and into Spanish. And all three are in the final phases of production and hopefully will be out soon. So I can join you in your car ride during your car ride as you're schlepping your kids from spot to spot, and we can have a nice time together. That's also a notation. The book is written conversationally. The way we're speaking right now, that's how the book is written. So it's a really quick read. My older daughter and my son wrote the foreword to the book. All the stories are approved by my family. So they're okay with everything. And I'm just genuinely excited and honored and feel privileged to be able to help the next generation of parents and mentors and entrepreneurs to have an easier path and to ultimately pay forward their superpowers to their own kids and the next generation, with the ultimate goal of building a more respectful and kinder world, way more respectful and kinder than what's going on today. Don't get me started. But no matter what faith or community you belong to, we rise together.
Oh, Margie, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And the concept that you shared in there about the invisible earplugs, I think is brilliant. I love that because there's so many times when we lose our cool because of what our children are saying or doing or the tantrums they're throwing or whatever the case is. And if we can just pretend like we've got some earplugs in and stay calm during that moment, we can handle it so much better than our reaction is always going to be to rise to that level of behavior, right? Or drop to that level of
Abs-
behavior.
Absolutely. I used to say to my kids when if they were dramatic and loud and carrying on, I'd say, first of all, I put those imaginary filtering earplugs in so that I was not listening to all of the drama and the loudness of it, which of course would naturally set any of us off, right? So insert earplugs, just like I would at work if a client or a partner or customer got a little bit vocal about something, nothing personal. They just weren't happy with something in particular. And I picked up the phone, or I was the point person. So I respectfully heard them out, and I would respectfully hear my children out, just the same respect, right? So I would say to my kids after they fit, I say, I hear you. Are you done now? And they're like, yes. I said, now you have two languages because they speak English and they speak Hebrew. I said, pick one and tell me calmly what is the problem. She took my whatever. Oh, okay. Now we know what the problem is. We can problem solve because we focused in on the core problem. Just like at work, you focus in on the core problem and then you problem solve for your client, partner, whomever, correct? Same difference at home. So, yes, those imaginary filtering earplugs. 2 for 1 sale. Get yours now. Do come in very handy.
Yeah, that's excellent. And also, congratulations on having your book written in the other languages as well, and then doing the audio. So, congratulations on that. That's awesome. And this idea of being able to listen to you in the car, great stuff. I mean, I know many of us have long commutes and are in the car for a good portion of our morning and our evening. And to be able to listen to you share this information in this calming voice that you have is,
Thank you.
yes, is going to just be the icing on the cake for somebody's ride home or ride to work, I think. And what a great way to set your day off right before you get to work. If you're hearing these principles and these ideas that you're sharing, I think it's excellent. Good stuff. So
Thank
you
you.
just yes, of course. And you just shared with us an example of how you can work with your child when they're maybe experiencing something like their sibling took a toy away or some other instance where they're just kind of triggered and don't know how to handle those emotions, right? So maybe what are other ways that you can be present with your children and kind of help them work through those emotions and something that's really an issue for a lot of parents now in this iPhone digital age. How do we become present with our children and maybe kind of take them out of that? Because we're not even sure of the repercussions fully yet of what that interaction with the digital products are going to be. But as a parent now, what are some things that maybe they can do to work on that?
Okay, let's consider our target market again. Just because it's comfortable for us to be engaging with our children at a certain time during the day doesn't necessarily mean that's the most optimal time for them to want to engage with us. So, first, we need to figure out where our windows are and to look for the cues that they want to talk, whether it's hovering, whether you're in the car. For some reason, they seem to spill quite a bit. If you get them going and you ask them like open ended questions. Also, late at night, especially with the teen, 12 and up, late at night when they're messing around with their phones. And if you see that they're slightly upset about something, or maybe a lot upset, I would use humor to start with. I would come in noticing and they get all quiet. And I would say plop on the bed, if you know what I mean, and say, "What's going on?" Just for fun. And then they would tell me something that was bothering them or some interaction that they had just had. Because with social media, it's not just about seeing who's at the party, it's about understanding who wasn't invited to the party, which can be very hurtful. Or a boyfriend decides the night before a test to break up with somebody. So either your child or one of their friends are having a crisis when the night before a test. So I would use humor to try to calm the situation down and really use words and delivery and tone to build my child up and to put the power back in their hand. I would often say to my kids, if it was relevant, we're not going to give this other person the power to decide whether we're going to have a good day, a good night, or do well at a certain activity. That power belongs in our hands because we're confident, we're smart, we're nice people, we're kind people. And the power is in our hands, and we get to choose what we want to do or not do, not these other people. Don't give them that kind of power. That power is in our hands. And I would sit with them until they felt comfortable. Hugs. It's scientifically proven that if you hug for at least 20 seconds, it stimulates a chemical reaction in your body to feel good about yourself. So if you got take the extra 20 seconds or more, whether your child releases earlier or maybe later, that's also a way of instilling a little bit of extra confidence and self esteem. And your child also knows that you're there to listen, to have a little bit of fun in a dark situation, and to help them through this very challenging situation over and over again. And sometimes you just listen. And again, with those imaginary filtering earplugs, drown out the crying and the screaming if that's going on, because everybody has a different way of reacting to situations that are not exactly what we have in mind. And zero in on the core of it to see how you can help your child, whether it's just to hear them out, whether it's to insert humor. I do a lot of humor, quite frankly, and imitations and a lot of different things. And if my girls' friends were in the room, everyone was cracking up. That was the goal, to redirect the negative feelings into something positive and empowering.
Good stuff, Margie. Good stuff. I mean, the point about when you are interacting with your children, you're so right. We come home from work and we think, okay, now we're home and let's interact with the kids because we haven't seen them all day, but they may not be in the same space as we are. 100% agree with that. I mean, I saw that play out for me and my family. And the point about the teenagers and speaking to them later at night, absolutely agree. They're going to be up later anyway, and that is their time. And so, what a great way to connect if you're doing it in a fun way to see what's happening in their life and in their world. And I love the point you made about taking the power back, not giving somebody else the power over your emotions and how you choose to respond to something, because ultimately it is our power. How we choose to respond to any situation is our choice. And instead of giving that to somebody else by allowing them to make that decision for us and choose how we're going to react or respond, that's certainly disempowering. And so reminding them that we have the choice and we have the power and we can choose how we're going to respond or react. Brilliant.
It worked here, but there's times when you're available during a crisis time and they don't want you around.
Mm.
And we also have to be respectful to give our children space to process as they need to. And I know that there have been times when I'm fried from the day. I need toothpicks to keep my eyes open. And right before I go to sleep, I might walk into one, knock on the door just to say goodnight to each of the kids. And it's 1 in the morning and one of them is ready to talk.
Mm.
So I say, all right, let's go, because this is when my target market is ready and they've got something on their mind that they want to discuss. This is the time. So again, it's not when it's opportune for us, it's when it's opportune for them, even if it's inconvenient for us. But guess what? That's part of the parenting job. It's in the job description. Whenever kids are ready.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just love it. And again, I so wish that I had you as a friend and this book when I was raising my kids, because it could have been an entirely different experience. And not to say that it was terrible or anything like that. I think my kids turned out pretty well and
Sure
we've
they
had,
did.
thank you. And we certainly had our ups and our downs as everybody does, but this absolutely could have helped me in how I handle some of those interactions. And it's great stuff, Margie. Thank you for taking the time to hear your daughter and follow through and write this book to share these ideas with as many people as possible so that it can make a difference in their lives, their children's lives, and probably another 2 or 3 generations down the line. And what a difference it can make, like you said, for the whole world.
Thank you so much. What's interesting is that I did it unintentionally. But now that I'm in part two, because now my kids are older, now I'm actually PR parenting intentionally. And I'll come to a situation. And what's funny is I'll say to myself in my head, Margie, take your own advice. So PR parenting is something that is applicable no matter where we are in our stage of parenting, whether it's the little ones or they're already grown and everything in between. And I'm hoping that the book is entertaining, informative, useful, gives you a new way of looking at things, new way to approach things to make your life that much easier and to help raise confident, resilient, and successful children, and to also help you in other aspects of your life. And ultimately, is something that gets paid forward, like you said, for generations to come.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's good stuff, really. And we could continue talking, I think, for probably another 45 minutes because we've barely touched on this topic. And I want you to share again how the listeners can find your book. I'll include that information in the show notes to make it super easy to locate. But tell us where they might be able to find it.
You can find the book at any major online bookstore, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, etc. It is traditionally published by Muse Literary. So if you're looking at an Ingram Sparks type order, that would be in the traditional section, which is called by a different name. I don't remember what it is. Like we were talking about, leave the jobs to the professionals. Okay, that's the publisher's department, not mine. And you can find me various ways. You can find me on my web portal, which is www.prfor period life, PR for life. You can find me on Instagram at Marjie Hadad. Marjie spelled with the J, folks. J like Japan. Marjiehadad. I'm also on Facebook, and we have a PR parenting group. And you can also sign up for the newsletter through my book portal. There's all sorts of ways to find me and to enjoy the book, to be part of the community. And of course, you're invited to reach out to me if you'd like to engage one on one to see how we can help you independently to learn to use your PR superpower skills and apply those specifically to.
That's excellent. Thank you for sharing that with us, Margie. And I will absolutely include your website information and the social media links so that people can find you easily, because what you're doing is so important and fantastic. Everybody needs to learn more about this. I think it's skills that we can use across the board throughout our life, raising our children, dealing with our spouse, dealing with employees, customers, clients, whatever. I think it's absolutely good stuff that everybody can use. Margie, I always love to ask my guests if there's books or podcasts that they have found beneficial or influential that they want to share with the listeners. And of course, your book is number one, but is there others that you think would be helpful for the listeners to check out?
Yes. Okay. Now, full disclosure, I knew this question was coming. So I prepared, and you're going to have to pardon me so that I don't have to rely on short term memory here. I'm going to read a little bit. All right. So, podcast. I like Dr. Becky's Good Inside. I think she's got good advice, which really is complementary to PR parenting. And a lot of what I hear her say can be applied. You can look at it through a PR lens and say it in different words, but more or less the same meaning. And I just think she's terrific. She's an author, she's a podcaster, and I'm a big fan. The next podcast that I recently discovered and am loving is called Wiser Than Me. And that is hosted by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who you may remember from Seinfeld. And I think she was also Veep and Assorted Movies. And this is wonderful. She interviews older female celebrities. Actually, I think male celebrities too, but wiser than me, older people with lots of knowledge and wonderfully intuitive perspective, all celebrities from what I've seen. And it's wonderful. I just love it. The most recent book that I've read is called Trust Your Intuition by Robin Pollitt, who is a speech therapist by education and by trade. She is also an intuitive, and her book is extremely inspirational. And I think that it's worth it for everybody to have a look at this book. I think you'll get a lot out of it. A business book that I've enjoyed is called Who Not How by Jan Sullivan, which is what it sounds like. But at the core of it is do what you love and do what you do best and leave the rest of it to somebody else. The things that you don't have time for, the things that you're not as versed in, everybody's got their skill set. Hire a who for the how and focus on the things that you do well. The next book, which is a fiction book, is called Woman on Fire by Lisa Barr. The reason why I like this book, other than the fact that it's beautifully written, is that it really reads like a movie. It was awesome. It held my attention from the very first page. And this is Lisa Barr's third book she has now, and she's pretty fantastic. And anything that Brene Brown does, have a look because she is spectacular.
Oh my gosh, Margie, excellent recommendations. So many good ones and new podcasts and books I hadn't heard yet or haven't been suggested on the show previously. And so thank you for that. I'll put it all in the show notes so you can find it easily because there's some great recommendations there. And yes, Brene Brown is absolutely a favorite. Her book, Atlas of the Heart, is one of my absolute favorites, but her writing is spectacular as well. So thank you for sharing those with
Yeah,
us. Good stuff.
absolutely. By the way, McKinley Aspen also has a series. I think it's called Presidium is the first one. And then there's a second one that just came out. But look up McKinley Aspen. She has a wonderful sci-fi series that I would highly recommend.
Fun. Good stuff. Thank you, Margie. I appreciate that. So thank you for coming on the show and sharing this with us, Margie. It's been an honor to have you on, and I so appreciate your time and your knowledge.
It's absolutely my pleasure. And I hope with one of the speaking engagements I have coming up for my speaking tour in 2005 that I come to a city near you or your city. And if I do, whoever's watching or listening, please come up and say hello and let me know that you listened to this discussion with Desiree. And we are instant friends.
Awesome. Thank you again, Margie. It's been such a delight. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All the best.
All right, we'll talk more soon. Thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in to another insightful episode of the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. We appreciate your time and curiosity as we explore fascinating topics together. If you enjoyed today's discussion, be sure to join us next week for another amazing episode. Remember, your journey of learning and growth is a continuous adventure, and we're thrilled to be part of it. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next week, stay curious and keep exploring those pockets of knowledge.